All right, welcome everybody back in the studio with us, my friend Eric Brody, who is founder and principal of Annex Real Estate Partners and Annex Ventures. Eric, awesome to see you.
Honestly, it's an absolute pleasure. And as we were discussing earlier, I dressed up for you being on Fifth Avenue. But what I've decided is what people don't know is this show is also adult entertainment. So we're going to take off this jacket and get started because
it's going to be kind of fun.
I can't have it that I'm more dressed up than James Nelson.
All right. And here I was trying to, roll up the sleeves. We're talking construction. We're talking tech,
I'm like, I can't believe it.
This is about as casual as I get. I'm wearing this at a Sunday barbecue, right? Dress shirt. This is all I got.
That's your upbringing, bro. I had this conversation yesterday in my mind. I said, people are wearing, to relax things, button downs. And it's probably because, in private school, that was what was comfortable for you, right? Or in school when you went to it, if they made you wear a uniform. Now I'm like, this stuff is not comfortable, but I remember that. It's so funny you just said that. Wow. Well, I'm glad to be here, brother,
Absolutely. It's just been, we see each other out and about. We've collaborated and love the podcast. So you got Real Tech Talk, super interesting. So maybe tell our audience, before we get to that, tell them what Annex Real Estate Partners is. Let's talk about Annex Ventures so they just kind of get a background of what you do.
So it's really important, and I've learned this from all of these tech entrepreneurs and these entrepreneurs, that you can say it in one sentence. So Annex Real Estate Partners is a capital advisory firm. Okay. Plain and simple. Nothing's changed. It's an old school business where if you need capital on one side, on an asset backed, which is mostly real estate, and do you know the capital that would match? When it matches, you make a fee. Peace, right? It's a very simple way of explaining it. In addition, what we're finding is people are reaching out to us where lenders, unfortunately, foreclosed on many of the people that I deal with in this space. And then they're looking at the market and they're saying, if we mark to market this asset, we're going to get 50% of its value. But they're retaining me to develop. It's not my vision. It's not my asset to complete their asset. So we have those two revenue streams going.
Got it. And of course, this comes out of your experience also in the construction world. So maybe talk a little bit, just remind our audience. And by the way, if you want a primer, go back and listen to our episode. I can't even remember what we talked about last time, but I know it was good. And I know the title of the episode because I know you're from Brooklyn. We called it.
No Sleep Till Brooklyn?
That's right. That's right. That was. I haven't been sued by the Beastie Boys yet, but we'll see. That'd actually be a good thing. Maybe we get some. Maybe we go viral or something.
That's right. That's right. I just want to tell you. You were one of the first people to embrace, right? And if you look at us, we're not spring chickens. We were in the game a long time, right? And they say until your present is uncomfortable enough to want to innovate, you don't. So I'm always curious for you, just briefly before I get into it, what made you want to innovate? You were doing well. You are a successful guy. What happened behind the scenes that you said, I need to innovate? Or is that always how your brain's been working?
I think, and I appreciate you asking that, I think for a lot of us, the pandemic 2020 was a total reset because we're sitting at home and we're, we can't stop moving, right? So suddenly we're on lockdown, right? So what do we do with this time? And I'm a huge fan of coaching. And my coach tells me, James, do you want to just sit and wait this thing out? Or do you want to actually do something with this opportunity? And out of that was born the podcast. Okay, well, maybe we can't do this and meet in person, but we can record this, right? And we can share this knowledge over this crazy new technology, Zoom, right? That led to the book. But I think, if you're kind of a Simon Sinek guy and what's the why behind doing this and what do I really enjoy, when I go to an event and a student comes up to me and says, James, I read your book. I listened to your podcast. I just got my first job. I'm an analyst. I'm an acquisitions person. Thank you. This really helped me as a springboard. I love that. And it's really, for me, when I got into trust me, we're going to get back to you. This podcast is about you, not about me. But
honestly, you were an inspiration to many of us.
I graduated in '98 with an English major from Colgate. I didn't even know what real estate was. I didn't even know it was a thing. And thank God someone took a shot on me to give, Paul Massey, Bob Knackle, who remain mentors of mine today. But they gave me a shot. It's a little bit tougher now today. I see these resumes that come in. We just took applications for a junior analyst position. We had 400 resumes come in. Wow. I would not have stood a chance back in the day. So I don't know. But enough about me.
But by the way, so it's a great segue because it was discomfort that got me to change. Okay,
right.
If you look at it, we were talking about it. I'm a Brooklyn guy. I want to run New York City, right? Like, why would I develop anywhere else in the world? And let me tell you something. That thesis, and it's all about timing. And it was really Justin Ehrlich who once said to me at VE Equities. He goes, you're a developer, and it's all luck. And I never really understood that because, unfortunately for me, I was developing so long that unfortunately I got into a space of discomfort. I had developed a building and a B-note lender had foreclosed on me during coronavirus. So it's the same level of discomfort where you're like, what am I going to do? There's no transaction. The world is falling apart. Well, here I am at the same time having a pressure coming down on me, like where the lender's like, well, pay the interest rate. I'm like, I need buyers. Like, there's no one here. And if you remember, it was the first and second wave of Rona. It hadn't come back yet, right? So we go through this experience of like extreme discomfort, and that's where change happens, okay? So what was that change? So now I'm in discomfort. So I meet these special force operators, right? Because a friend of mine is one of the biggest donors to the Deliver Fund. And they come up to me and they, talking about your feelings and things like that. But the second thing they say is you do an after action report. What went right? What went wrong? Right? And I never, ever, I don't know if you did, self-reflected on anything. Like you just keep hammering away. If I work harder and work longer, it's going to work. So boom, I self-reflect and then I do this after action report and I find this data analytics website. And you know what the data analytics website said? The product coming to the market, the shadow inventory that's already existing at the year that I acquired the asset because you back test data, way too much product coming on the market, tons of shadow inventory, and then the rate of absorption of sales. It was like 9.5 years, right? So the data said, why are you developing?
This is before coronavirus. So what you're saying is you were building a project that
I'm
really
developing. The building is okay, great question. Bank is like, here's this development site. You need 70 mil, we got you. I go to Common Equity to raise 20, we got you. Right?
What year was this?
This is I probably pieced it together 2017.
Okay. Right? Everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, front page news sort of like is like, like here's the money, here's the capital, great deal, right? And then when you look at the data, which had nothing to do with like popular opinion, complete opposite story, which was fascinating. And that story was way too much product coming to the market. So before I ever had taken the risk, if I would have known about what some data analytics, and we can go into that, you never would have taken the risk. You would have found a much better place in order to put that capital where the story would have been better.
So was that because you were just doing things with your gut, or you were so focused on the construction aspect of it that you weren't paying attention to what was going on in the market?
Great question. I think that the mid-market space, except the head of the comet, is basically, if you're going to give me the money, I'm moving forward, right? They're not looking from a macro perspective for signal indicators in the marketplace that what they're going to do in 3 years is going to have that demand. For you and I, it would be like, we know this neighborhood. There's people here. Go for it. Right? So you never even knew. And that was, by the way, the first layer of the onion. Right? So now I'm like, oh my God, there's a data analytics website out there that basically told me, I can't believe you did this. You're going to get hurt really bad. Right. And yet I didn't know anything about it, right? You're a builder, you're a developer, you're working on efficiencies within your actual space, or how you can build faster, or how you can be more efficient, or what do you think that the market actually wants, right? Because if I went to a broker and said, hey, what does the market want here? You think that they would have said to me, well, there's way too much product coming on the market. Don't develop this, right? Yeah. So when that happened, we're type A personalities like you. You wrote a book, like you sat down and wrote a book. Well, I researched 9,000 tech companies with my partner, put together a 250-page document, called up my other partner and said, let's start trading publicly traded real estate stocks, and tech stocks. And he's like, you don't know what you're doing. He's like, start a venture fund. So I have nothing to do. The world is collapsing around me. I go to my friends and I said, technology is going to impact real estate. Look how obvious this was. And I raised money. So then I read Tim Ferriss's Tool of Titans, and he's like, in order to create an ecosystem of companies, do a podcast. So I said, shit, I'll do a podcast called Real Tech Talk. So now my friends call me up and they're like, are you a venture capitalist? I'm like, why? Because I started a fund? No. Then they're on a podcast. Like, are you a podcaster now? I'm like, no. Then the Real Deal calls because they're seeing my videos at 6 a.m. of me working out. And they're like, we should do some shows. You're good on camera. So I start doing a construction and development show, start doing another show. And people are like, wow, do you now, are you now a content creator for the Real Deal? I'm like, no, I don't know. But what that did is it brings around these incredible humans, right? What do you want to be when you grow up? You and I were like, we want to be real estate, entrepreneurs and titans of real estate. Well, the other generation wants to be Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and they look at the world completely different. So I started to have them in my ecosystem, and I said, where is a laggard space within the real estate industry that if you understood the way that technology can create any kind of efficiency, right? That's where I not only want to invest, but I should think about a company in that space. And it's not such like, being an entrepreneur, it takes time. You can't be like, I've got it. You have to reiterate and iterate and iterate and iterate until you find that space. And for us, we realize with our skill set, we know how to underwrite construction and development. We understand it intimately. If we could actually bring technology, content creation, influence into this space, can that be a successful business? And that was the start of Annex Real Estate Partners. And that's how it all came together.
Love that. You said so many good things, and I hope our listeners are taking notes, and our viewers who are watching. We tried to stream live. We keep trying to embrace technology. We're live on James Nelson NYC. We'll get to.
And by the way, we expect a report.
That's
on
right.
What you and I discussed.
That's right. So, what I love about your story is that you're looking for solutions and you're taking your experience, right? And you're looking for practical answers. And it's no surprise at all why The Real Deal loves to get you on camera and say, hey, Eric, what did it cost to build this building? How did they build this? Because you take complicated things and you make it simple. And I think sometimes we have tendency, we can get really complicated, and yeah, this business can get really complicated. But I love how you shoot straight, you put it out there. But again, you're really trying to solve. I mean, that example that you just gave, where, listen, if I had known what the inventory was, I wouldn't have built this building in the first place. Okay, now you all watching this and listening to this, that might sound like an obvious assumption, but if you're talking about the platform Market Proof, I know you had him on your show, like that wasn't even around a couple of years ago. So I think part of this is we're learning what are the new technologies that are out there that can make our business more impactful.
Well, you know what? I think it's important because you and I are talking about tech, but the audience really, and we want you guys to know, we're in a Machiavellian business. And a Machiavellian business is it either got done or it didn't, right? You either closed the deal or you didn't. Everything that you do to that moment is relevant, but if that moment didn't happen, it's irrelevant. So first and foremost, as a part of real estate, when we talk about technology, it's as if it's adding to the fact that you are very good at what you do. It is not a replacement of you being a good commercial real estate and me being a builder, developer, in capital markets. You have to be the best. So I think the bottom line is before you and I ever talk about technology, you still need to understand the fundamentals, understand its nuance. And for me in my brain, public school kid, you have to break it down to simple concepts. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the most successful people in real estate, they weren't brain surgeons, right? We're not brain surgeons, right? We're the doers of the universe. So when you and I talk about technology, it's a layer on top of underneath that being a doer, which is why you worked as much as you did. You were as successful as you are, because if you understand the Massey-Knackel sort of process and where you started, it's like you had to canvas and get it done. Right? Yeah. So I think that's really important for like our audience to understand is we love talking about the latest and greatest of what's up here, but there is a mountain of shit below it that you have to build up in order to do it, right? Construction and development, you have to learn how to build. You have to learn how to acquire. You have to learn how to finance. Nothing to do with tech.
I love that you made that point because sure, technology, data, it makes us all a lot more efficient, right? A lot more productive, right? But it also, there's still no substitute for showing up and doing the work. And I'm following AI and its impact on our space. But maybe this is my time to try out my theory on you. And a lot of this, actually, I didn't even know when, and I'll say we were writing the book because I had a great writing partner in Rachel Hartman when we put this together. But the whole premise of the insider's edge to real estate investing is that this is an inefficient marketplace, right? It's not like the stock market where you know where a building's trading every minute of the day, okay? So as a result, you can take advantage of that, right? Because first of all, you might be able to buy something off market that maybe hasn't bid up that other people don't know about it. Or maybe you have a certain way to approach the construction where you can get an advantage. Or maybe you can unlock zoning potential, right? There's a lot of things that you can capitalize on where it's not a level playing field, right? And that's kind of interesting. The fact that there's inefficiencies in the business is actually what I believe makes investing in real estate such an attractive option. So the question and the use case, and maybe we can talk about maybe a topic for a future show, we were speaking about this before, is I've now been brokering for 25 years. And what if I told you that I believe that a lot of brokers still do exactly the same thing, that the same sales process that they were running 25 years ago. Okay. Yeah. Some of us, sure. We put it on multiple listing services. We put it out on social media. We leverage data, but the actual process of selling a building, okay, is in many cases still the same way. We can talk about 10X and we can talk about a marketplace. Well, that's probably the closest we become to a marketplace for selling real estate. And I think if we had my friends here from 10X right now, they would tell you, yeah, we're a tech-enabled platform, but we still need a human being. We need a broker to actually answer questions because this is complicated stuff. But the sale process is still the same. So I want to first throw that out there, and I just want to get your impression before I maybe throw some other things at you.
So at first, I think I agree with you. It's an inefficient marketplace. It's wild to me how inefficient it is and the lack of information in order to create those markets. But it is changing. And that is sort of where the rubber meets the road on how tech is actually going to impact. So I think first and foremost, the answer is yes, inefficient, right? Even Sam Zell spoke about that. Like there's inefficiencies. How you build, I build cheaper, I can pay more. Wild, right? Or, you didn't get it out to the greatest markets. You only got a certain amount of offers. Crazy. That you're doing it similar to you were 25 years ago is insane. I heard a guy who's got really fast growing commercial real estate business. My guys are in from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and they can't eat or use the bathroom and blah. And I'm like, all right, like you either have the greatest supply of Adderall ever or like you're just doing the same thing. And what you're saying is that it's such a grind and eventually those that grind the greatest will win. I need real estate to keep saying that. I need those marching orders to say, because something called innovator's dilemma, and that's by the time that everyone figures out what you and I are talking about, we are already head and shoulders above them, right? So then the second thing is, okay, you hear from everyone about tech, right? Yeah, I was with the guy today on the phone. He's financing a deal in Jersey that we're looking at. And he's like, I'm having trouble opening up emails. I'm like, good. I need you to continue to have trouble with this minutia. So people ask me, so what do you do, right? Like what is it that's changed? Like, how could you change that process? And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's out there. There are people coming at it from different angles. They just might not have expertise in the space of real estate. They're in technology and they don't realize its application. So there's a part of the humanity of real estate, the way in which we think and the way in which we move and our absolute resistance to change because we've done so well under it and our fear. And then there's this whole industry that you and I keep saying is tech, and that is the wrong way to look at it. Here, imagine we're telling someone, James, and you were like, I'm going to write a book, right? You don't have a problem when there's a heavy lift, but most humans do. You have to understand what it even means in technology. What does that even effing mean? Like, is it data? Is it efficiencies in workflow? Is it, reporting information? What does it even mean? And you have to have now like sort of a cross-section of understanding technology to then even start to understand where you can pinpoint it. And something that you said is fascinating is case study or use case, right? Like, and people are like, what do you mean? So you have to start to think the way in which you operate. What is your day like? And if you're like, all I do is get on the phone and make 500 calls, or if you're a developer, you're waiting for brokers in order to communicate with you, there is so much more to it to give you an advantage. And we can go into every process along the way that is changing. And then the question is, are you willing to invest to take that risk? Because it's a risk, right? Real estate likes to wait and see, right? We are late adopters of technology. It's like, let's watch James and Eric. Let's watch them fumble around. We'll see what worked for them. And then we'll try to adopt it. And for me, that's like, great, you should do that. Because by the time you figure out what you and I have discovered, we will already be way past you.
Right. So you're right. There's so many different use cases. What are we talking about? And I want to get specific because, I think this is going to help our audience because it really goes to the opportunity and can the fundamental way that properties are sold, can that be disintermediated. That's the disrupted. Yes.
Well, no. I think disintermediate is better, which is disintermediating the process and reducing the amount of humans required in order to have a massive volume, right? It was Sam Altman's quote, which is there will be a one-person billion-dollar company one day, but if you don't understand what tech he's basing that off of, you don't know. And I think in your space, there are things that there will be a small firm doing massive volume.
Yeah.
Facts.
So again, and we talk about how you can leverage data, how you can become more efficient. And look, I took MIT's AI course. You could too, by the way. Nice. You got to just pay them the money, right? By the way, Instagram Reels, like now I'm just getting, hey, get your graduate degree in this, that. Sure, So I'm following. I want to see, and look, I know enough that right now, yeah, sure. And I've had companies come to me and say, James, we can have AI, go and make calls on your behalf, right? It could actually reach out right now to every single owner in New York and, pitch them a deal, ask them if they want to sell, right? And have conversations with them. Now, who knows what those conversations would look like and what kind of results it would yield? Is that even acceptable, right? I'd be curious, what. Well, we don't have to go down that road.
I'll give you a specific on that. Yeah, I'll give you a specific on that. You want to talk specifics, and then let's talk about something specifically for our industry. Okay, so specifics on AI phone calls. Try it. It's delayed. Doesn't feel human yet, right? So it'll get there, and I would use it.
Yeah.
But if you got to test it, say, make the call to me and sell me on something. There's this click and delay. It's not perfect yet. It won't work.
But it will be. It'll get there. But here's the issue that it's still not going to get to. So sure, can I blanket the market? Could I have some AI chatbot go and we already know owners. I mean, we had Ofer Yardeni on the show. He's renting apartments. People say, "Oh, I thought I was talking to a live human being." You weren't, right? And they set up the appointment. You showed the apartment. There's absolutely use cases. But here's the fundamental way that I don't think that brokerage has changed since I've been doing this, which is a lot of brokers say, a listing, an opportunity, a deal, that's currency, right? I don't want to let the whole world know, right? I'm not going to put it online. I'm not going to put it on LoopNet. I'm not going to put it on CoStar. I'm not going to put it on Crexy. I'm going to keep it to myself. And what am I going to do? I'm going to call my 5-6 preferred buyers, right? Because this is the way it works. And the old school of brokerage, right? You've been on the other end of this. I'm going to show you this deal, Eric, but you're going to give me another deal to sell. And by the way, I'm just ripping the cover off the ball on this one. So if the deal does not exist, if it's not out there where something can go and scrape for that data, you're not even going to know about the trade until after it happens. And that's why I fundamentally think that, AI, yes, it can help with the outreach. It can maybe kick up some opportunities. But those, old school owners, those relationships that brokers have cultivated for decades, when they finally get that call, okay, yes, it's time to sell. Now, most of them, again, maybe from you talk about the Massey Knackle era, hey, full exposure. Let's blow this thing out to the whole world. Hey, give me technology. You want to give me a tool that I can reach a greater audience and let the whole world know that I have a property for sale. Sign me up, right? But for every broker like me, there's probably someone out there who says, that's okay. I got it. I don't need technology's help. I know who to call, right? And that's what's going to keep things off the grid, so to speak.
Okay, so let me first let's frame technology appropriately. Mm-hmm. And that is, if technology gives you 1% advantage or 0.25% advantage, that's the way we should be selling it. It's not, all of a sudden the world has changed, and if you use tech, you've now disrupted the industry. Mm-hmm. But if me and you are competing head to head and we're just as good and just as motivated, but I have a 1% advantage, guess what? Over time, I win. So the fact of the matter is, you should be looking at these technologies to create the slightest efficiency, because over time, you will win. So it's not that I'm going to change everything, but if I got a slight advantage, you take that advantage, because the game in life is millimeters and milliseconds. So it's really important that we understand that when you look at this stuff, is it going to make me a little better, okay? The second thing is the idea of the relationship. And by the way, I posted about this and I got a lot of heat for it, but this is just the facts that I see. I'm not saying that I'm trying to create this narrative. How do you circumvent a relationship that you've never had? Never had them, never knew them. What's that? Of course you do. It happens to you every effing day. Every day you are getting calls or people are picking up the phone because they want to speak to you. And there's a reason that it's 2% better than it was the year before and a little bit better than before. So the first is, yes, you are an amazing broker, right? We've already said that. You said you have to be the best. Okay? You research, you write books on it, you are immersed, you're obsessed, you love the business, and it comes through the second they contact you. But I guarantee you today, because people feel like they know you, they listen to you for an hour a week, that you have circumvented many relationships because you create content. If me and you saw Joe Rogan right now, we wouldn't be like, hey, what's their name and what are you about? We'd be asking them about HGH and frickin' the newest psilocybin and some other thing, and you'd be like having this conversation with someone you've never met before. I don't care where I am. I'm in Miami. Developers are walking up to me. I love your content. I have to slay my ego because, you know, Brooklyn boy, I'd be like, yo, I don't know you. Now I have to be like, yeah, very nice to meet you. It's been a pleasure. I was stopped in the airport the other day. So the fact remains, you have to be credible. But the fact that you and I are creating content that people are reviewing where they feel like they can connect to us circumvents a relationship. And we know that to be true because this guy named Ryan Serhant has $1 billion business because of his exposure. And by the way, I was the greatest hater of, you know, creating content to put it out there. Well, you want to know why I don't do it anymore? Because I was wrong. I'm wrong. Create content. People are interested. They perceive a relationship. That is circumventing a relationship. People pick up the phone all the time that never would have spoken to me or never heard of it because they've seen it. People are speaking to you all the time.
Yeah.
So that to me.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I would look at it almost as it certainly helps cultivate the relationship. So, I mean, again, hopefully someone is listening to this or watching this right now that one of us doesn't know. We're sharing this amongst our audiences, and look, someone might reach out after this and say, "Hey, Eric, I'm trying to restructure a deal. The construction stopped halfway. Can you help us out? Can you figure it out?" That's a great phone call for you. If someone's going to DM us and say, "Hey, James,
loan, or I need you to sell," of course,
sell a property." Okay, but we know that that's not why we're doing this, right? We're playing the long game. We're putting content again. It's got to be. It's not just about, hey, aren't we great? It's really hopefully trying to be helpful to the audience, right?
And over time, value.
Then once you meet someone out and about, then you cultivate the relationship. But I don't know if it's just, you know, we're taking things right off, you know, online and going straight to business. So
no. I think there's many steps, but top of funnel.
Yeah.
You and I are in the transaction universe. You need to come to the top of the funnel and then nurture them down to the relationship. And the way I've been describing it is like a football field. If I can get from the 0-yard line to the 95th yard line before I've ever communicated with you, and all I'm doing all day is then cultivating relationships, I've just made an incredible efficiency and I can close more transactions, right? So we just have to frame it appropriately as to why. But let's talk about a specific example that the audience might not know. Let's just talk about data. One little step. And why we're going to talk about data? The reason is, technology in our business has to start somewhere. So when you're thinking about technology impacting your business, think about the first thing that you have to do to be in the business, right? One of them is data, right? Information. Right? Like if you have information, can you use it for marketing? When I go to the listing, pitch, I have more information, right? And I was telling you this before the show. Do you know how many companies in-house have data scientists using data? And then we'll talk about what that means to use data. Top of funnel, top of the comic companies that are really harnessing data and information. Forget about AI. Forget about, business intelligence. Forget about that you know everything about a city. Do you know how many real companies are really taking that information and using it?
I bet out of the Fortune 500, all of them. I would hope. Otherwise, they're probably not there.
I'd say 40. And I think you'd be shocked
really?
That these massive funds that are giving out billions of dollars, that I have better information than they do.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, maybe they're only scratching the surface. I mean, I know, and you talk about even 25 years ago, I'm starting and I'm cataloging a neighborhood. And yes, it was with a 3-ring binder and I'm taking photos of buildings and taking notes. We're collecting data, right? And so now, of course, you can go to Google Earth. All this information is publicly available. It's a lot easier, right, to gather that. But now and I know, and that this isn't a plug for Avis & Young and our Avant data analytics platform, but when I talk to our data scientists about what they're doing is they're taking 100 adjacent data sources and they're looking to how to make decisions for our clients. So in other words, if you're a retailer and you have 200 locations and 50 of them are not doing well, right? what do those 50 stores have in common? And by the way, let's look at your top 10% performing stores and what do they have in common? And then where, when you're thinking about expanding, right, where should you be looking, right? That's about as practical of a use case as you get. And I know they get super detailed, and hopefully I'm not giving away too much of the secret sauce, but I know we do a lot of work in healthcare also. And we'll have hospitals and we'll look at their location. We'll say, you're in the wrong location. We'll say, how do you know? Because it's shock. Look, because we can see where your insurance claims are being filed from. Somehow that information's out there and they can pull it. They know where the patient is. So it's wild once you start digging into this, how many of these companies are actually using it, right? So it's one thing for the company to have the information. It's another thing is, how do you make it actionable?
So I think that you hit the nail on the head. And I first off think that is an advantage to Avison Young, which is what they're stating is we are collecting this information. And remember, that's just raw information. It's binary data. It's ones and zeros. It doesn't mean anything. Then you said something that's also super interesting. We have data scientists. There's a human whose job it is to find hypotheses in that information. And then the third thing you said is from that, we're able to now create signals as to where you should be. That is where data is being used. And I'm telling you, besides the top companies, the mid-market has no idea, right? They're hoping that they can find that information. And what real estate is providing is raw data. No one's now processing it, cleaning it, coming up with then insights from it that's actionable to you. That is where the space is today. So imagine, like you said, I'm a retail purchaser. I want a specific SFR, whatever it is. If you knew what variables are relevant to you, right? And it's a question, what variables are relevant to you? That's something you have to solve for as the real estate professional. The next thing is you have to weight that variability, right? That's a 10, that's really important. Well, that's a 1, but it's still an important variable, right? And then weight that variability, right? Mm-hmm. And then score it, right? Because we're just assuming. We don't know what the future is. Another COVID could come. But is it 10 variables? Is it 500 variables? Is it 1,000 weighted variables? The more that you do, and it was this guy who wrote a book on strategy by John Gaddis, basically stating the more variability, the better your decision making will be. But the problem with us humans is we get bored really fast. We don't want to hear after 1 or 2 variables. You don't want to get down to the 500th one, right?
So this might be a bad time then to segue. It's like, was it squirrel? It's like I'm so ADD. But I do look. I could talk about this topic with you for hours, but with limited time, I do want to make sure and talk about what you're doing, the work in restructuring, right? Because
yes,
look, I believe that the next couple of years are going to be some of the best buying opportunities that we've ever seen in our lifetime, right? So we know there's going to be a lot of challenge, right? But where there's challenge, there's opportunity. There's what? $1.5 trillion of debt coming due. We know it's, we're already seeing it day in and day out that in a lot of these cases, certainly office, but even multifamily, right? Where, we need to see this massive deleveraging, right? It's not just the rates have gone up dramatically, right? But when you go and refinance that deal, it's like, okay, not only is your mortgage, we're going to need you to pay down that loan. And a lot of borrowers are saying, okay, either I don't have the ability, I don't have the desire, right? So this is going to force a lot of transactions, okay? So that's still assuming you're in the money, right? And you can make that decision, okay? But there's unfortunate situations. And look, without throwing out names, it seems that no one has been immune in this market. And again, this isn't a current event show. I want this to be evergreen. I want someone to listen to the show 5 years, 10 years from now. They're going to get value out of this thing. But let's just say, this is a point in time when there is tremendous distress. There's tremendous opportunity. So let's talk about what you're doing at Annex to help solve that issue.
So first and foremost, I feel like something that's important, which sucked, by the way, I had to take the red pill and see the Matrix, was I was distressed. I did not get out of this unscathed.
You didn't do the thing where you slowed down time and moved and the bullets missed you. You were just getting shot.
Or the old school, real estate is like, oh, everyone else has problems? No, I'm fine, No, I got hit right in the effing head with the bullet, I didn't move fast enough. So that's first and foremost. The second thing that I think is fascinating is you have to look at the lens of reality, right? And not to be like a psychology thing, but yes, It changed, right? If you're still underwriting or looking at your asset for some evergreen change that may or may not happen, you're just going to get run over, right? So the first thing is look at the head of the comet. The biggest companies are giving the keys back, right? If those guys in a room are saying to themselves, we gave the keys back, we've lost this, there's no money to be made here, whatever capital we do have, and if you look at it from like a military perspective, you need to save that crew and then go win this battle over here and let that go. Don't keep fighting and dying like you're going to lose. It's really hard for people in the mid-market space. It's a lot of emotion, right? Maybe your family's owned it a long time, whatever the case is. So the first thing is to, at Annex, what we do is we say, look, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off, okay? We understand the bid ask on the debt that's available or the capital that's available, and these are the returns they want. Here's the underwriting, and we're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know what's happening. I'm not going to even look at your rosy picture. Oh, this may happen and that. Forget it. This is today's reality. Whatever that equity that you thought may be gone, maybe your best decision is to hand the keys back. And then they'll say, no, something will happen. Okay. In the past, it did happen. In the past, we were saying after Corona, you finally got to the light at the end of the tunnel, you'd be fine. Then interest rates, right? We don't know what the next thing is. Right? So first is to look at the lens of reality, and we're seeing it. And what's happening? Lenders are getting more aggressive. Right? Mm-hmm. Literally getting more aggressive. So when they come to us, we advise them on what the tools are in their toolbox as borrowers, right? In dealing with it, because we're seeing it all the time. Or we're like, if you're underwriting new deals, you make sure you have today's data. And when you underwrite that to the returns, look at it from today's perspective. Stop with what the past is, right?
Eric, I know you're on a roll, but I really have to underscore this because I really hope people are listening. Again, everybody's hoping that, and if you're new to this, maybe you haven't lived through this a down cycle yet. But again, the biggest names out there, no one's immune to this. If you bought property in the last 5 years, you're probably having some challenges.
You were wrong.
You have debt coming due, and look. The point is you have to address reality. And again, I believe me, I hear about bid-ask spread 10 times a day. Like I can't, like I wish that just left our jargon, but your point is addressing reality. And for us, what that also means, I think the broker has a role in this. I mean, for you brokers listening out there right now, when you kind of prolong the issue and you tell your borrower, your client, like, oh yeah, no, I think I can get you this price, and then you can't, and then suddenly you've taken them out 6 months from now, maybe their loan has come due and now they're going into a default situation. I mean, that's a real disservice, right? And I know everybody wants to win business and everyone's trying to go find that unicorn, but I think you have to be realistic and say, look, this is the 30-day clearinghouse value, and hey, can we get lucky? Would we love to recoup some equity? Sure. But this is the reality. And unfortunately, a lot of times we know an owner is underwater. We say, look, we're sorry, we can't help you. And our advice to them, and again, I'd be curious kind of how you handle these situations, but on the sales side, we're saying, we should probably go to the lender and just have a conversation and say, look, we get it. We think our equity's wiped. Like, we don't want to get into a whole legal battle with you and drag this thing out. And I think the property suffers under that public process of all this distress. Like, let's go run a process together. Okay. We're actually doing, back in 09, 08, 09, 10, I was doing a tremendous amount of these loan sales. Now we're doing a lot more short sales, right? Where the bank's saying, hey, we don't want the asset back, right? We don't want to go through this legal battle. Let's just run an open process. Let's market this. And hey, if you can recoup some equity for your client, great. But if not, you've established the market and we'll sell. And if we got a short sell, that's what we're going to do. So sorry to go off on a tangent, but your point
I think first is you're right. I think people appreciate authenticity. As I've told people what have happened in the past to me and where I lost, they all want to do business with you. No one is perfect and creating this rosy picture. I think that's a false narrative, and you should be authentic and tell people the way it is. Maybe do it in a nice manner, but be authentic and tell them straight up. The second thing is that's an argument for a perfect marketplace and saying like, oh, we want to go to 5 or 6 people and we want to try to sell this. Well, if you knew everyone who was looking at it, maybe you'd get a better price on a short sale, right? The third thing is we talk about this new opportunity, right? And there's going to be this greatest opportunity ever. You know what I think about? I go, well, the same people, right? And you have to find the new people, the new money. The same people who got hurt in real estate are the same people who are now trying to do deals in real estate. Our borrowers come to us in distress, and first they're like, well, we have all these relationships. Well, half of your relationships went under in regional lenders. So you need to find the new money, and we know that new money, right? So you're coming to us because we're able to advise you that that capital that you've always worked with just got hurt. They're short sailing everywhere. They're not opening their books and moving forward with anything. You need to find the buckets of capital that are now looking at real estate, right? That's what we're sort of seeing is how do you find that new capital coming in to now capitalize on these new opportunities that we're seeing. So the second thing I want to tell you about the short sale, there is a process, and it's not Shakespeare, although I used to quote it. Many a slip from cup to lip, right? You need to go and communicate with your lender. You need to have your broker, but there's other players on that team that are relevant because when you just hand the keys, right, it's strategy, unfortunately. It's sort of like negotiating at the end of a gun. Right? You have to slowly walk away to get to the result that you want, and you have to be comfortable in discomfort. So you also need legal, you need accounting, you need brokerage, you need people who understand like the opinions of value that you're giving, right? Like you have to slowly move away. You can't just say, I'll give you the keys back because there's liabilities that are there. So it's a process. And unfortunately, the only reason I know this is through experience that I can now give to others to not let it happen what happened to me. So my point is, you look at the lens of reality, you understand you might be wiped, and then you slowly walk away to live another day.
Yeah. So Eric, what's really fascinating to me about your business and for the people listening who have experience, and maybe it's on the construction side, maybe it's in the capital markets, is that you're coming in an advisory capacity, right? To come in and make sense of these things. Now, the question for you right now, and maybe the answer is, and I know you're being super humble saying, hey, I've been burned, I've been foreclosed on, and I think people appreciate because you speak to a lot of people, they don't want to talk about, they only want to talk about the success, right? So you've actually said, hey, I've had projects that I've lost before, but I know that wasn't always the case. I've watched a lot of your projects, and you've built some really beautiful buildings. In the pride of what you've built, when I go walk a building with you, the pride, the knowledge, every single square inch, right? So here's the question. If we really believe this is one of the greatest opportunities in the market, I mean, as an advisor, as a broker, and look, I do a lot of investing. I talk about my own investing in the book. I do it mostly as an LP, right? So I'm not out there swinging hammers because I got a pretty busy day job here. But you have that knowledge. You have that ability to go in and be the developer, right? Which for a lot of the people listening right now, that is like the dream. I want to go build buildings, right? You can do that. You have the capital relationships. So, I mean, to challenge you, I could say, hey, Eric, you're kind of on the sidelines right now. Why wouldn't you jump back in there right now and get in the game?
Because, okay, so first and foremost, development, and when we talk about it, is a non-scalable business. You can't scale development. Development is also a rich person's business. You need to have a lot of capital. You go at risk, and then you have the chance of doubling and tripling your money. So you need to have the fee game, which is what you're saying, and then you're investing into the LP space, right? So if it's non-scalable, what do you do to scale? Bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger projects. The idea that you can develop 10 assets at the same time, it doesn't happen. So it's a time suck. There's only a certain amount of hours in the day in order to develop. Merchant development, which is the ability to raise capital from others and then to get capital from a bank and then to actually develop it, is getting its ass kicked right now. Everyone that you're hearing on the merchant development side, unless it was their own money and then they had more money to put in and then we go to refi and we have more money, it's gone right now. There's not that opportunity yet. But when that opportunity comes, I think it's very important if you're a developer, is that a project that's a hell yes? There's no project that I've seen today where I'm like, oh my God, I'm stopping what I'm doing. The vision that comes to my mind is amazing and I have to do it. There's no one that is forcing me to. If you look at my last development, it was discounted to land in an irreplaceable asset on the Greenpoint waterfront that we were able to underwrite as a rental, okay? Right. I didn't see that yet, and if it came to me, I'd jump on that. But I know it's Greenpoint. I know the data. I know that this can never be replaced. I see what's happening in the area, and I can prove it left, right, and center. The stuff I'm seeing, I think it was mediocre to begin with. Right? So you have to pick and choose where you want to do the development, and then you can go all in and execute. Because like Justin Ehrlich said, you got one shot. You're either lucky or unlucky. So the answer is we are on the sidelines, but the answer is we're also going to finish for developer. We're going to finish for lenders. So we're staying sharp.
Yeah.
We're ready to rock
Yeah.
and roll when that opportunity comes. I just haven't seen something that just isn't like, of course.
Right. So, and not to put you in the hot seat here, but I'm going to keep drilling down on this, which is, look, your answer makes sense in that you need to make that financial calculation. Certainly, if you're a developer, and look, sure, if you're one of the biggest out there, then maybe you can still get away with non-recourse financing, right? If it's very low loan to project costs. But the reality is most of these boutique developers, they're going personal on this stuff. So I'm not discounting that, okay? But the actual piece of the development process, the creativity, the final product, we had Amit Khurana on the show, and he talks about his passion for design and for architecture. It's like the numbers almost come second, and they're that's what is allows these projects to take place. But like that actual, yes, it's a lot of work and hands-on. It's not scalable. But when you finish that project and that pride that comes along with that, does that register for you?
Listen, 100%. No one can ever take away from me that I've changed this skyline or that building was executed upon. But when you did that and you cared so much about it and you put all your love into it, and then the market changed, which has nothing to do with your business plan, you built it on time and on budget, and yet somebody can take it from you, it shifts your perspective on it, right? Like, bottom line, like, you're like, I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. It's a gorgeous asset. Yeah. By the way, the market came back and they killed it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change that you were at risk and they can steal it from you. I can walk by that building and be like, yeah, I built it and these MFs took it from me, But the bottom line is it changes the way you perceive it. So there has to be love. There has to be passion for it. I talk about developers. There's kind of three types. The one you spoke about is a marketing developer. He sees the vision. Right? Can he execute? Maybe. I have no idea what his skill set is, but he sees the vision of a future that he's looking for. Then you have the financial developer who just has every capital contact out there and he could do whatever he wants, right? And then you have the builder developer. I was the builder developer. When the design, I went to artists, right? They were the ones who assisted me. And now, by the way, we can go into data on how I'd go about knowing without a shadow of a doubt what should be designed and built and with much better information. I love the symphony of the execution, right? How do you bring these disparate parties together? There's like 60 different parties together and get them to all want to work together, that you're leading them to an eventual goal. That was what my love was.
So, Eric, and this is a great way to begin as we think about how to bring this all together. And we have covered a lot here. But I want to talk about what drives you, because I feel like I know we're kind of living in parallel universes here with I know the kind of drive you have. And I know the first time we met up at one of your projects and you're carrying a book with you that was it was at least 600 pages. It wasn't the Power Broker, but it was something on some war general. And I'm like, Eric, first of all, have you heard of Kindle? I thought you're a tech guy. You're carrying this gigantic book, but you're reading about war strategy. I mean, so like, what drives you? And I think you just said that a little bit with like the execution and the symphony, but it seems like to me that you are just constantly studying, right? And you're trying to figure out how to, make those tweaks. So what is it that
you want the truth?
Yeah.
We'll get into a little bit of psychology.
Okay.
Most really driven people, feel as if they're not enough. And that's Buddhism, right? So it's an external validation, right? If I could keep learning and keep doing, maybe then, others will see what I can't see. So it comes from within. So what drives me today is to be fulfilled with what I'm creating, right? That you can pick yourself up from the ashes, right? With truly believing in yourself and create something extremely special, whether that's this capital advisory, when I get into another project. So instead of coming from a place of fear, I used to get up at 5 a.m. and I still do, and it would be like, oh, what's my enemy doing? And I'm reading the military books. I look at the military book now as like a strategy, as like how you can win, but not like, oh, I got to kill this guy, Right? Now I do it with love, because I have a better day if I wake up and I do fitness, right? I have a better day if I'm feeling good and I can meditate. And then what happens? The creativity comes along, and you can do all of these incredible things, and people want to be a part of that, right? So today what motivates is me, and by the way, it's not to be like weird, not weird, just like or cliche. I have 2 little girls, right? They can't see me now fail. You want to be the light. You want to be their hero, which, by the way, is another psychological thing. You want them to grow up and be like, wow, I'm proud of my father, right? So that's something that really drives me to get out of bed each day. And then just, looking from within myself that, you can come back from getting rocked in a space and then create something incredible, right?
Yeah.
That story motivates me.
Yeah.
So that's like,
Man,
that's how
I
get
love
up
that,
every
Eric.
day.
This has been amazing. I mean, I just every time we get together, I have so much fun. It's energizing. I learn a
You
ton.
gave me coffee. That's the problem.
And I hope that look, if the people watching this, if they didn't get value from this, I'm not sure what to say. Although I will be curious, based on this kind of landscape that we've created, are we encouraging people to jump in the game, or are you thinking, hey, maybe I'm going to kind of sit on the sidelines? So, and I know you're very responsive on, and tell our audience how they can connect with you and reach out.
So first, I think it's a great time to get into the game. And I just think if you get into the real estate game, you should have an open mind. Your advantage today is that you had grown up with technology, and that was a part of the process. Right. That change, I think, is fascinating. As long as you go in and you're learning from those that are there, but incorporating these efficiencies that you've seen, I think that that's a great time to get into this space. So for me, you can find me on Instagram, _Brody. I got TikTok. Probably Eric Brody. No? I'm doing a couple of things. LinkedIn, Eric Brody. YouTube, Eric Brody Real
Don't
Estate.
Don't forget the pod.
We got Real Tech Talk. Like, follow, subscribe, as we know. And we'll be out there. And listen, I think what's important is that you and I, James, when people come up to us, we are talking to them. We are not scary humans that won't speak. We are open. Like you said, you like that when people are coming up to you and you're teaching them lessons or that they're interested. I'm the same. Right?
Yeah.
This knowledge is, when I'm gone, like it's gone. So like I want to give it away to everyone because I think that there's philosophically, it's like this guy Adam Grant has this book, Give and Take.
I love that. That is one of my top. Wow.
Just keep giving, dude. It's gonna come back. This idea of only giving as much as someone gives you, forget it, dude. Like just
with no expectation.
No expectation, right? It comes back 100-fold.
I love that, man. What a great way to wrap. Eric, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, everyone who have been watching this stream or listening now. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. That's how we're out there. Eric's been so generous with his time. Let's get the word out there. Also, jamesnelson.com. I created that website for you. That's where the show notes are. That's how you can find out how to connect with Eric. There's a lot of useful tools out there, white papers, and sign up for the monthly newsletter. That's how we're basically pulling all this information here. What the show is about is help you gain the insider's edge to real estate investing so you can outperform the market. Until next week, thank you again for joining.
Find that alpha, baby.
Woo!
Find the alpha. We're all looking.